And what if you could only, earn 4%, but you only had to pay 3%? This is why banks are in business, because they're saying, hey, Stova, I'll give you 1% if you put money in here. And on the other side of the wall, they go, and if you want any money back, we're just going to charge you 4% to borrow it. I mean, that's a really good rate of return for them, because
it makes me so uneasy hearing this every time we talk about it.
We just spoil your life every day. This is why you need to go to Paris for a vacation.
I'm ruined.
Yep. And what's crazy is it wasn't their money. It's your money.
Right.
So,
out of curiosity.
They gave you a toaster in the old days.
Yeah.
To let you know you're going to get burned. And then last time I went in, they're like, here's your lollipop, sucker.
Oh.
But they
That's why they give those out?
Yeah, exactly, because you're a sucker. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. Banks pay you to rent your money. Then they sell that money to others at a much higher cost than what you actually get paid, right? Do you know there's a strategy where you can use the bank's money and have a window where you don't pay interest for up to 30 days? Yeah, that's right. Using the bank's money and shortening your loans with the same amount of money you're currently paying. So let's talk about this and a few other ideas. Stolva, what's up?
Hey, it's a good day.
Is it?
It is. It's always a good day.
Thank you for bringing Paris to America.
Yeah, just give me a baguette. If only I could speak French. I would love a getaway right now, wouldn't you?
Yes. Especially when you're around me, you're like, I could really use a getaway right now.
I need a break.
Yeah.
Need a break from my quarantine break.
Seriously. I am going to be very excited to travel internationally again when we can.
All right. What's our question today?
Okay, we have a question regarding velocity banking.
Okay, we'll explain what that is here in a minute. Yeah,
I'm going to give you the numbers and the rundown, and then we'll have a dialogue about it. So this person wrote in and said, I have a primary residence with a $497,000 loan. It's $810,000 value and a cash flow index of 200. He also has a rental property of $228,000 in the loan, $316,000 value, and a cash flow index of 225. His total monthly expenses are $7,609, and we have an exact number of his total income being $10,134.24. So here's this person's question. Would it be ideal to use velocity banking to pay down the rental 100% and use its cash flow to cover the monthly mortgage on our primary? So let's just define what velocity banking is.
And cash flow index. Let's have Tim do both.
Yes.
Okay.
Take it away, Timmy.
I'll start with cash flow index.
Timmy, I like it.
So cash flow index is a really quick way for us to analyze loans and look at loans the same way a bank does. So a bank, when they look at loans, are more interested in cash flow than they are in interest rates. They want us to be focused on the interest rates, not the cash flow. So they'll say, we'll see that all the time, right? 30-year mortgage, 3.75%, and then a 15-year mortgage, 3.5%. So they want us to give them their cash flow back faster. We need to kind of flip the table on them and do it opposite. So a quick way that we've developed to do that is to take the total amount you owe on a loan divided by your minimum monthly payment. That will give you a cash flow index score. Any scores that are 50 or below are really in the bank's favor. They're kind of destructive to you on your cash flow. It means you have not leveraged very much cash, but it's costing you a ton of your monthly cash flow to keep that leveraged. Any loans that are kind of 50 to about 100, we say usually you can refinance or do something about that loan, restructure it, find a different way to borrow that money and be more efficient. Any loan that scores better than 100, we consider to be a very efficient loan. So these two loans that this gentleman has, one scoring 200, one scoring 225, extremely efficient loans. So most likely he's got really long terms and also really low interest rates on those loans.
Yeah, so I call these like either cows or hogs.
Yeah.
A cash cow, is when money's coming into you, or when you have a really efficient loan so that you can do more with your cash, where a cash hog is taking so much of your money. And so, I think a lot of people get kind of enticed by whatever's going on with the interest rate. And I know, especially with interest rates being so low, I'm hearing a lot about people refinancing to a shorter loan, but not really changing their payment dramatically and thinking, I just saved me a bunch of years. And although that might be true, it's very microscopic and only looking at one thing versus the big picture of, well, what if you even kept your loan extended so you had lower outgoing cash flow? Because think of this right now, we have people that have major unemployment, going on in the country, a lot of things that happen with quarantine. And so holding on to cash right now is really critical to bridge that gap and also to be able to capitalize on opportunities on the other side.
Absolutely. And we don't know what's going to really happen from the quarantine yet, right? A lot of people that maybe have lost their jobs, but they were getting an unemployment check plus $600 a week extra, plus a stimulus check.
They're making more than when they were at their jobs in a lot of cases.
And a lot of those companies, their mortgages payments been deferred for 3 months or 6 months, so they're not having to make a mortgage payment either. So they have not felt the pain yet of losing their job. But eventually that unemployment check will run out. Eventually the stimulus money won't come back in, and the mortgage company will say, you owe me money again. And so I think a lot of the pain that is going to happen from quarantine, we haven't really felt yet.
Yeah, it's coming down the line.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate that's 2, 3, 4 months down the road? Or, I mean, you probably can't really predict these things, but.
Hard to say. The closest I've been able to come up with is I tried to model the daily closing of the Dow Jones from 1929 to 1939 to see what happened during the Great Depression. And just real quick numbers. In 1929, we had a high point in the summer, September, of 381 points in the Dow. By November, the dark days of the 1929, we had hit 198 was the low point. So we'd gone from 380 at the high in September to 198 as a low in November. For 1930, we bounced back, stayed in the 240 to 270 range most of that year. But by 1932, the Dow actually hit a low of 40 points. So a high point of 380 in September of 1929 to 40 in the spring of 1932.
Wow.
So for them, they had a bounce back year. They
didn't have a $3 trillion influx from different government initiatives and the printing of money, essentially.
Exactly. So it's even a different animal. So this one, I think we have our best chance of recreating the Great Depression. That's good news. So thank you. You're welcome. Because of this stuff, right? We just sat down at a computer one day and poof, $3 trillion appeared, So there's some things that we've done that'll make it different, but that's why I feel like we're going to be in for a really rough ride here, and we could have a bounce back period that looks good, and then
so less outgo,
and it'll go downhill from there.
Yeah, less money that you're forced to make payments is a good thing, because a lot of people collapse two terms: loans and debt.
Yeah.
That anytime we owe something, most people just refer that to as debt, and when we have a notion that do everything you can to get out of debt or avoid debt like the plague, like we wrote about in Killing Sacred Cows. Well, if you owe money, that doesn't necessarily mean you're in debt. If you have an asset attached to it that's worth more, like he does in both cases, he's got a home that's worth more than the loan. So he could liquidate both of these and end up with money in his pocket. That's called equity.
Yeah.
But most financial people say, well, you're in debt. No, you're not. You're in equity, but you have a loan. So there's a difference between efficient loans and inefficient loans.
Yep.
And destructive loans. Destructive loans are you owe something like a credit card. There's no asset attached to it or no hope for future income from it. But then you have, assets that might have a loan against them that create more cash flow than that loan costs. That's actually a pretty efficient and very productive type of loan. But not a lot of people can handle having a loan and create production with it, because we've been trained, taught, and educated to consume, to borrow to consume, and banks don't borrow to consume.
Nope.
If they were to borrow to consume, they go out of business very quickly. So what we want to focus on is efficient versus inefficient loans, and that's what we're using the cash flow index. Now, the second thing is velocity banking. It used to be called Heloc buy downs, and that's home equity line of credit acronym. So explain what that is.
Yeah, so that was my first understanding of it. Was a gentleman in Australia that kind of started that whole process. And he said, what you do is you go out and you take a first position HELOC. Okay, so on this rental property, for instance, he would go out and take a first position HELOC for the $228,000 that he owes on the first mortgage.
And most mortgages are amortized loans.
Yes.
So a HELOC, or home equity line of credit, is a line of credit where you can pay it down, you can charge it back up. It's like a credit card attached to your home, right? Better interest rates, still have potential tax deductibility, but most of them are going to be variable interest rates, where most amortized loans are fixed interest rates, even if fixed for a 5-year period before it goes variable, right? Like a 5-year ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, using all this terminology.
Yep.
Do you guys have a preference of one over the other?
I do. I'm more partial to having an amortized loan, which some of the velocity banking people are going to go nuts about, because if you look at an amortized loan, it looks front end loaded. So let's say you have $1,000 mortgage payment. If a 30-year mortgage is your first month making that payment, what is it, like $978 is going to go to interest?
Yeah, most of it's going to interest.
If $20 going to principal, $22. So people are like, why would you do that where you can get an interest only home equity line of credit? My biggest concern with the home equity line of credit is what happens when interest rates go up. They're so low right now. Can they go lower? Probably not. So what happens when they go up? Now you're going to owe more. And the dangerous thing that most people don't consider with home equity lines of credit is, let's say that I just have a $100,000 mortgage and I pay $10,000 down 1 month. And then the banks get into some trouble like they did in 2008 or like they did in 2000 or during the Great Depression. And they go, okay, we're no longer going to let you get that money back out because the real estate market's gone down, or our lending criteria is now going to be more restricted, and they can just cut down what you haven't used overnight. There's not a warning about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of people, as he mentioned, what they've designed it to do is you get that first position mortgage, then they have you dump all your cash into that account. You have your paycheck get deposited against your HELOC, and then you write out checks from your HELOC like it's your checking account. That way, all of your excess money is going towards principal every single month, and it pays down the loan very quickly. And mathematically, in a vacuum, it's very effective. It's insanely effective.
You're doing what's called floating the bank's money.
Yeah, I've heard you use
You
that
pay
term
it
before.
down, so you're not paying interest on that money, that you pay all your income towards the loan, charge on credit cards, get your points, get your miles or whatever. You have 30 days to pay that off with no interest, as long as it gets paid off in full. So you're saving interest on one side and floating the interest on the other side. In theory, awesome. During certain times, it's going to work phenomenally. In the wrong time, it's going to be a disaster. Higher interest rate potential, and you might have your money locked away, and now it's stuck on a credit card because it's tied up in dead equity. And so one more thing I want to say about this is we always have an interest cost, whether we pay cash or whether we borrow. The interest cost, if you pay cash, is you forfeit the right to earn interest on your money. If you borrow, you pay interest that's pretty obvious. You write a check. It's less obvious to understand that opportunity cost of, hey, I'm not earning when I pay cash. And what most people measure when they're looking at like a 15-year versus a 30-year loan, they're only looking at the interest that they pay, not the interest they forfeit. So let's just say it's 30% higher payment on a 15-year loan than a 30-year loan. People aren't giving credit to the 30% higher payment and what that could be if it was put somewhere else. Now, I'll admit it. Most people are going to put that money in an index fund or in the stock market, and I don't like that because it's volatile. The stock market's overvalued. It's propped up artificially by all this money that's flooding into the economy. So, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But it's not as mystical or magical as you would think on loans. You know, most people think high interest if I'm a 30-year loan, less interest if 15, and no interest if I pay cash. No, you forfeit the right to earn interest. It's what kind of investor are you? Where could you put that money? Do you have safety, stability, and security and predictability? And what if you could only, earn 4%, but you only had to pay 3%? This is why banks are in business, because they're saying, hey, Stova, I'll give you 1% if you put money in here. And on the other side of the wall, they go, and if you want any money back, we're just going to charge you 4% to borrow it. I mean, that's a really good rate of return for them because
it makes me so uneasy hearing this every time we talk about it.
We just spoil your life every day. This is why you need to go to Paris for a vacation.
I'm ruined.
And what's crazy is it wasn't their money. It's your money.
Right.
So,
out of curiosity.
They gave you a toaster in the back in the old days.
Yeah.
To let you know you're going to get burned. And then last time I went in, they here's your lollipop, sucker. Oh, they
That's why they give those out?
Yeah, exactly, because you're a sucker.
When all of this was happening with the economy and interest rates were being lowered by the government, I called the bank just out of...
the Fed lowered it, which is not the government.
Yes,
it's a private entity.
FYI, but brilliantly named.
Yes.
So we feel like it's the government.
So with the interest rates being lowered, I called the bank because I'm like, it's 0%. I wonder how that's impacted the percentages. And
they became more profitable.
It was like 8, 9, 10%. And I was like, they're not transferring that quote unquote discount to the people. Why?
They don't.
They just they got access to money
at a much cheaper rate, and they're charging everybody else an asinine percentage still. Not everybody, but a lot
of them
people.
moved into an infinite territory. The Fed rate is 0 to 0.25%. If you'll give me an asset for $0 and I can charge someone 4% profit on that, what's my rate of return?
Where's the accountability to the system?
It's infinite.
Look at Stella. We're going to get you drinking by the end of the day. We're going to have to do wine tasting for you or something.
I might need a glass of whiskey by the end of this. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So let's get back to the question. I know we have a lot to say about this. We've now established
all of the rules and all of the thoughts behind it.
Yes. So I guess from your perspective, the cash flow index is great. It's high. So there's nothing we need to talk about there.
Extraordinarily efficient.
One piece of information that is missing from this question is what the interest rate is.
Yeah, we don't know what his interest rate is for sure. I'm assuming it's got to be a good interest rate based on the cash flow indexes.
And because he also has a rental property, he's got to have a good enough credit report to get a rental property in addition to a primary residence, which is going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Yep.
So keep as is. And my recommendation would be pay the minimums like you are here, put the rest in cash flow banking, which we do plenty of videos on that because it's pretty easy if you're paying, 3.5 to get equal or better interest rate over time. Keep control of your money. Where velocity banking, yes, it could work. You pay it down, you pay off your cards, you pay it down. But I'm just worried about what's going to happen in the future, with variable interest rates. I think it's safe for a little while. But one of the risks we face, inflation's scary because it means, okay, I have $1 now, but 5 years from now, I can only buy half of the things I could with the same dollar. But when we do these things, we also risk deflation for periods of time, which is much more dangerous than inflation. When all of a sudden it's like, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I don't know how dark I want to get today.
How much time do you have, Tim?
If we can do a follow-up video on how to dig your own bunker, we can go down that.
Want to master your money? Want to figure out the things that you could do to improve your finances? Click here and check out more videos like this on Money Matters.